Hi, in this tutorial we are going to be covering loops and if statements. So we're going to start at the top by making a little comment here. So this is going to be a demo about if statements, loops, and we're going to use a random. So we always want to start our Python classes with this def main and a colon, and I'm going to go down, make sure it's on the same indentation level, and I'm going to add a main at the bottom. So the def main and the main should be the same indentation level. So we're going to start with a basic if-then statement. So we're going to go ahead and create a password variable. So we're going to call a variable password. Set it equal to whatever you want. I'm going to call mine fundip. And then I'm going to prompt the user to enter a password. And then I'm simply going to just check to see if those are the same. So I want to know if my password is equal to what the user enters, then we're going to tell them they can enter. Otherwise, we're going to tell them to keep out. So I'm going to say if password equals user, and then make sure that when you're doing this, you're going to have your condition that you're checking, and then you're going to end it with a colon. It kind of tells the if statement that that's the end of the condition that it's checking. So if password equals user, and then if that is true, I'm going to have it print you may enter, and then otherwise we're going to tell it that you cannot enter. So if we just wanted to check an if and didn't want an else, we could leave it at this. But because I want something to happen no matter what, I'm going to go ahead and hit enter. I need to make sure that I do backspace so that the else goes at the same indentation level as the if, and then I'm going to print here stay out. So a couple things I just want you to notice about an if statement is that we don't use any, we don't need any parentheses or brackets. The statement's ended with a colon, and the computer knows what's part of it by whatever's indented inside of it. So this print statement is the only thing indented here. This other print statement's the only thing indented with the else. So if I were to run this and I enter in gibberish, it's going to tell me to stay out. If I enter in fundip correctly, it's going to tell me that I can enter. Now, as I move on in my program, I need to be careful, because if I hit enter here, this automatically stays at the same level. And let's say I want this moving on to print no matter what. And you're going to see that if I were to run this and enter in fundip, I don't see moving on. And the reason is the indentation level is the same here as the stay out, which is telling the computer that it's actually part of the else. So instead of using brackets, Python indents. So we're going to move this back out so it's lined up with the if and else so that it gets run no matter what. So that's a basic if statement. The next thing we're going to look at is an if statement or else if statement. And that is basically to check more than one condition. So we're going to start this. We're going to do a guessing game, like a guess my secret number. So I'm going to create a variable called secret num, and I'm going to set it equal to a random number. And to do that, I'm going to do random.rand, R-A-N-D, int, short for integer. And then in parentheses, I can give the range. So I'm going to go 1 to 100 for my range. So this is going to allow it to generate a random integer from 1 to 100. Now, the other thing that I need to add here is that random is a class that we're trying to use. So we need to make sure at the very top that that class gets imported. So I need to import random at the top as well in order for that to work. So the next thing I'm going to do is prompt the user to enter in a guess. So I'm going to say guess is equal to, and I'm going to need to cast that to an int just as a refresher from last time. Remember, input statements are considered strings, and so if you want to use them as a number, you need to cast it as an int. So I'm going to say here, guess my secret number. So I've taken whatever they guess and I've casted it, so now it's become an integer. And I'm just now going to check to see, first I'm going to check to see if it's in range, and then if it's the secret number or not. So I'm going to say if guess is greater than 100 or guess is less than 1, we're going to have it print guess out of range. And then we're going to say now for the next part, this else if. Instead of saying else if, Python generally will use this statement elif, and it's just shorthand for else if. So we're going to say else if guess is equal to the secret number. So secret num. Then we're going to have it print you guessed my number. And then my next option, so I'm going to have another elif, guess is greater than secret num. Then we're going to have it print guess is too high. And then finally, our last option would be to print that the guess is too low. So that will take care of all the kind of different options for my guess. A side comment, when you're using and ors in Python, you're literally just using the word. So instead of using symbols for them like we do in JavaScript or Java, we're using the words and or the word or. So we're going to go ahead and run it. I'm just going to test out a few different things. So if I put in 101, it's telling me that my guess is out of range. If I put in 5, it's telling my guess is too low. So we can see that it's kind of seemingly working. Now, the only problem with this is that it's not very much fun because I really still only get one guess. So even though it's giving me information, I'm only going to get one guess. So we're going to go ahead and add to this some basic loop work, and we just to kind of show you how to use a couple different loops. So unfortunately with this project, it would be more fun if I could keep guessing until I get it correct. So in order to do that, I need my code to run more than once. So I want to look at my code and decide which code do I need to run more than once. And that code is basically going to be every time they guess, and then all of the output that they get when they guess. That's what I need to continuously run. So in order to do that, I'm going to add in here a while loop. And I'm going to say while the guess is not equal to the secret number. Because when I do a while loop, I need some sort of condition to determine when I'm going to stop the while loop that I'm in. So I'm going to say while they're not equal, I want the user to be able to continue to guess. Now, just like with an if statement, all the code that's contained in the while loop needs indented. And this is kind of a problem when we add the while loop in later. So a quick way to do that is that if I take all of the code that should be part of the while loop and I highlight it, then I can simply just hit the tab key and it will move it over and make it part of the while loop. So you can see that now all of that code here has now been indented, so it's inside the while loop. The one last thing I need to do is that I'm using guess up here in this decision, whether guess is not equal, but I really don't give guess a value until I'm in the loop, and that's going to cause a problem. That would actually throw an error. So I need to make sure I go above this while loop, and I'm just going to add a line of code in to give guess a value to start with. And as in a safe value here would be 0, right? Because 0 isn't going to be between 1 and 100. So as long as I'm picking a number that's not, it will at least allow me in that loop. So now just to kind of do a final run through here, if I guess 50, it says my guess is too high. If I guess 102, it says it's out of range. So let's go back to my original guess. 25 is too low. 35 is still too low, 40 is still too low, 45 is too low, 47 is too low. I'm almost there. And at 48, I guessed it. And you can see that it no longer asks me to guess once I hit 48 because the while loop condition is no longer true, and it makes the loop stop executing. So that's a quick synopsis on just basic if statements and basic while loops. A couple things to keep in mind. Just remember that indentation is really important, is to say which piece goes with what. So if I want a statement to be the result of an if statement being true or the result of that while condition being true, then it needs to be indented in a little bit from, the while or the if.